War II was fought on epic battlefields in amazing, diverse locations all around the world.
It's hard not to get excited when you consider the incredible battles that are featured in Call of Duty Vanguard.
So many people that come together to create Call of Duty Vanguard. It was a privilege to be able to work with all these teams to build a world that feels authentic. Even though this is a fictional story, if the world feels right and is believable, it pulls the audience in.
The team showed a lot of passion to come together to deliver this game.
In Call of Duty World War II, we were telling more of a story of one U.S. Army infantry unit and their experience. With Vanguard, we're telling something entirely different.
There's people that often seem to be forgotten when it comes to World War II.
Some of the most dynamic stories are the stories of those people who are in the shadows, who've been shunted to the side by history.
You play in different places, you experience different things, and it feels substantially different because of the visual styles we've been inspired by.
There were so many amazing battles all across the world, often tide-turning battles, moments like Midway in the Pacific, North Africa, and Stalingrad.
There is so much more of World War II that still needs to be told.
Call of Duty Vanguard focuses around a special forces team that is sent into the heart of Germany at the very tail end of the Second World War.
What we were attempting to create was an origin story for special operators.
The stakes are pretty high as they're trying to end the Reich once and for all.
We see these characters who've all done incredible things. The reason that they're put into this situation is because time is of the essence, and they can get into Germany much faster than a conventional military could.
In our fictional story, the Allied leaders had heard about an operation called Project Phoenix.
So they assembled this team to go in and stop it.
We have 5 main characters in Call of Duty Vanguard. We have Arthur Kingsley, Paulina Petrova, Lucas Riggs, Wade Jackson, and Richard Webb.
It was quite a challenge to make sure that each one of them was special in their own way, and I think we really achieved that.
Our team leader is Arthur Kingsley. Arthur Kingsley starts the war as a British paratrooper.
We based him on Sidney Cornell, who was Afro-British, and he served in the British 6th Airborne Division.
His journey is really all about becoming a leader during the events of Operation Tonga.
He is, I think, one of the most creative and complex characters that I certainly have ever encountered in games. To see a character like Arthur Kingsley exist, particularly in a Call of Duty franchise, it just blows my mind.
Paulina Petrova is our Soviet sniper. Her character is inspired by Lyudmila Pavlyuchenko. Lyudmila became a sniper. She ultimately earns the nickname Lady Death.
Paulina's transformation as her city gets destroyed, emotionally, it's such a big change for her.
She doesn't start the story as a soldier. She becomes a soldier by the situation.
Paulina walks through the world with a very single-minded focus, the desire for revenge.
And she becomes infamous to the Germans and a kind of symbol for the Russians.
Our Lucas Riggs character is inspired by men who actually experienced the siege of Tobruk during the Second World War.
These Australian fighters, the Wraths of Tobruk.
And Lucas's story is one of rebellion against authority. The British, who commanded his forces, didn't really treat the Australians with the same level of respect as they did the other British soldiers. It's a very underdog story. Wade Jackson is our American character.
He's inspired by this actual hero of the Battle of Midway that I know, named Vernon Mikeel.
We hear about Vernon, who fought in Midway and was attributed with sinking 2 of the Japanese aircraft carriers.
Wade wants to be a hero to everyone at home, and really his story is about him learning to accept that he has to get help from other people and that he's more impactful if he works as part of a team.
Richard Webb is inspired by Terrence Otway. Otway was an officer commanding the 9th Parachute Battalion.
We took a lot of inspiration on our Operation Tonga level in the game, and Richard Webb was a big part of that.
Richard Webb and Arthur Kingsley, they're serving together on D-Day as British paratroopers, and then they ultimately become critical members of this special operations team.
Through artistic lens, we want to create the war-torn world in a poetic way. We want you to feel a sense of grandeur.
Something that's common among all these teams is trying to bring this world to life. The audio team went out into the desert and recorded dive bombers. We landed the plane and climbed in the cockpit and did all the Foley recording. Our lighting team did the same thing. There were these wildfires in California.
Our senior lighter decided to take his equipment and just go out and capture the sky. I immediately thought about we can use this for Stalingrad summer level.
I feel really lucky to get to work with our narrative team.
Which started out as Steven and Brent, and then they brought on myself and Tochi.
There's so many different people from so many different backgrounds, each doing their own part. So to be able to witness that progression and to now be a part of that progression from the creator standpoint, it's very empowering.
It just ended up being such a wonderful melting pot of people and ideas and perspectives that all came together to work so well to craft something that we're all really happy with.
Working with actors, they really bring extra elements to the characters that we don't necessarily have when they're just words on a page, and then they really bring them to life during our performance capture sessions. And then we put it straight into our game.
You know about Wade, but they haven't caught him yet.
You told him he was killed, didn't you?
Call of Duty Vanguard was an interesting project in that for most of the project, we were away from each other. We're all doing this in our living rooms.
We were able to foster an environment that is strong in creativity.
It was really amazing to see, and I'm so incredibly proud of the story that we've told together.
The teams go to exceptional lengths to bring this world to life in a real and authentic way.
It's all about trying to give an immersive experience to our player.
I want the player to feel like they are a part of this team.
To really feel like they're on that journey with them.
November 5th is right around the corner, and I'm so excited for our fans and new players to Call of Duty to be able to experience World War II in a way they've never experienced it before.
Going back to World War II with Call of Duty Vanguard, it was very important to make sure that we had a canvas that was large enough to tell this story that's really about all these different theaters of war and how all these people came together. We're inspired a lot by what cinema does. Early on, we had this idea of, hey, what if we could actually partner with someone in the film industry? And that's how we got to talking to Hoyte van Hoytema. It's allowing us to bring in some of his sensibilities and his philosophies into our format.
It just has a very different set of rules and a very different set of sort of philosophies as if you would be making a movie. But what if you would approach this game as if it was a movie? You would start thinking about its concepts and about its colors and about its cameras and about its angles as if you were doing a film. And that is a very different mindset.
I think if anything, it was just a huge learning experience for like the whole team. And I think film breaks a lot of walls, and incorporating more film concepts help us break our walls.
Growing up in an art background, I think the first thing you try to learn is how to make things look better. You chase this idea of, beauty. And so in my initial conversations with Hoyte, that's one of the first things that he challenged.
In working with Hoyte, one of the things he really cared a lot about was creating these honest images. We wanted to create images that didn't have anything that didn't need to be there, that distracted from the purpose of that scene.
Don't do everything because you can. It's much more important to keep your restraint and do as little as you need to do in order to help that build up to that moment that you really want to show fireworks.
We've worked with Company 3 in the past who've color graded a lot of our games. Going back to Advanced Warfare, I mean, they did some amazing stuff.
Cinematic sort of reality was something that was stressed. I saw a bunch of briefs and a bunch of images and heard Hoyte and Joe and other people speak with respect to their intentions. And in this particular instance, it came together rather quickly because everybody seemed to be on the same page.
I was a huge Call of Duty fan. So as soon as I heard, I was thrilled. I was like, how can I be a part of this? And I was part of kind of that initial testing phase of what does the game need to feel like? How do we want this to be different than any other game?
With Operation Tonga, we're creating this experience of like a soldier separated from his team, all on his own. We needed to create this very isolated experience. Working with someone like Hoyte, who understands lighting and cameras and has this immense knowledge to share with us, gave us a lot of information that let us ask the right questions when we were working with Company 3.
I think there's a lot of moments that maybe traditionally they would have been flamboyant and crazy, and now they're much more restrained and suddenly they become more meaningful.
When we were initially testing out Tonga, we were able to test out different looks, see how certain scenes reacted to, a particular LUT or pushing it cooler or warmer, and kind of shaping it up a little bit more. We were able to kind of get a sense of what worked and what doesn't, and how we are going to be able to create that sense of realism.
In the game, we can make anything. It's CG, right? It's computer graphics. So the more you do that, the more that the game feels like a game and it feels like a fantasy.
We had a lot of discussions about how can we make things feel more real and how can we make things feel as if they're part of our real world. Sometimes you can create a beautiful sunset, right? Just because you can, but maybe that sunset you should just tone down, Make it grayer, make it a little bit more depressing, make it a little bit lesser flashy.
I think having those imperfections and letting things bounce around sometimes, especially if it's a frenetic sort of part of the scene. For me, I've learned over the years that, the biggest source of realism is imperfection.
And those kind of little choices all over the whole thing, I think they were very important in adding that kind of realism.
When we're iterating on cameras, we would have a character performance and the camera would track the character perfectly. It just seemed artificial. And then so what we did was we pretended like there was a camera operator, and that camera operator couldn't keep up with the choreography because the choreography is so fast.
We are working in CG. We can put the camera literally anywhere we want, but we wanted to restrain ourselves and put the camera in places that it could actually be put. There are some examples where it does seem like a very intricate camera move, but it should always be something that could have been done in the real world.
The team has these amazing ideas and creative energy, and so it's all about like just heightening that and just giving them more tools and bringing more people into the conversation to push us further, right?
I very seldom encountered a group that was just so genuinely enthusiastic about what they were doing. And there's nothing better than, be invited into a creative process like that.
And it's really elevating the art direction, the visual aesthetic, the creative direction, right? There's ideas that kind of flow back and forth in between either Parker at Company 3 or Hoyta, and we're all kind of working, trying to shape this thing. From the very beginning, we wanted to achieve a new feeling and a new player, a new dimension for immersion. So with collaborators that we've been able to bring on board to this project, the partnerships, everything we've learned, and everything we've grown as a studio and as creatives, we're excited about what the players can experience on Call of Duty Vanguard.
In all the years that I've been covering conflict zones, I was in Afghanistan, Syria, and Iraq.
The first time I was at Lebanon in a city called Tripoli. I moved to Jordan. That was super shocking to me.
I definitely think the Great Wars.
World War II would be fascinating.
I think that would be any journalist's dream.
We've created a virtual camera. It's like a portal into the game engine. Not only does it transcend them into the game engine, but back in time, as if they were a photographer there in the period.
Here's your camera.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Do you have a 50 mil I can use?
Yeah.
like they were situations that I would normally capture.
I was impressed how kinetic the game was because everything is actually happening and moving around you.
It was really fascinating to be part of a type of battle that I've never been.
This is what war looks like. This is what conflict looks like. This is it. This is real.
What I wanted for the game was something new, to feel smaller, and we were telling as a human story of individuals, and we wanted the music to do that, not just be big and orchestral all the time.
When you first reached out to me and the possibility of working on Call of Duty Vanguard came up, I was like, okay, you want a big orchestral sound, I could do that. But then when I got into it with you and we started really digging into the details, I could see the vision that you had, which was smaller instruments that actually cut through the mix more than the big orchestral colors. The idea to go really big is always a starting point. But what's interesting to me is when you start smaller, you can get these voices, these sounds, this texture that cuts through. It's like a laser beam cutting through all the sound effects.
I like dynamic range. I like things to stand out, right? And I like letting everything else take a back seat and let that stand out in the mix and take the forefront. And it just feels gritty and dirty, but in a really cool and interesting way. And I wanted the same for the score.
For one of the first times in my career, I recorded before we really wrote anything.
Before you wrote a note.
It was very almost improvisatory. We were just getting textures. We had this body of work, this collection of agitated, strange string ensemble textures. We didn't have the score, we had the starting point. From there, it broadened out and we brought in more players. And we now had the template set for how to approach them. With a combination of material that was written in advance, notes on the page that they would play, and then we'd ask them for their input. We'd ask them to improvise. And I think that kind of collaboration between everybody at Sledgehammer, myself, and the players, that's what yielded this really unique sound in Vanguard.
I loved that you wanted to work like that, right? I love, because again, experimentation is exactly how I work. We wanted to do something different, and for me, there's always a bit of trepidation in doing something like that, right? Because it's like, oh man, this is Call of Duty, and there's a certain sound that is usually associated with Call of Duty, and we want to sort of break that mold and do something entirely different.
From that starting point, I wanted to bring in Sandy Cameron, who's one of the most exciting artists that I've ever worked with. Sandy brings this virtuosic energy, and she can also improvise. Normally, I would just write the theme and have the player play it. But in this case, in the spirit of doing that improvisation, I wrote a bunch of stuff. And we wouldn't decide what Paulina's theme would be until we had the audio of Sandy playing it and we dropped it in, and it happened organically. Then these notes under her fingers, that's Paulina's theme.
It's powerful because I think the player and the audience recognizes that quickly. Whenever that violin comes in, right? You know it, you hear it, it's so clear, it cuts through, and it becomes this powerful moment of feeling the internal dynamics of this character and what they're feeling.
What's neat about Vanguard is that we have all these intimate, raw, scratchy, personal moments. But when we want to be more heroic, when we want to be more emotional, when our heroes come together, in these surgically selected moments, we have this huge orchestra recorded at Abbey Road in London, recorded like a gigantic Hollywood movie. This is very much an epic, soaring, bombastic orchestral score. It's when we choose to do that that I think sets apart Vanguard.
Yeah, I think the score in what we did, I think really elevates music in our game in a really powerful and interesting way.
We started this whole thing wanting to take some risks, wanting to do something to change the sound, to be risky, bold, and experimental, but deep down inside, I'm hoping that it just becomes part of Call of Duty. I want them to have this emotional experience and just go, oh, that's what Call of Duty sounds like. Because it's a feeling more than an actual sound.
It's the emotion, it's the soul of the story. And if it can accomplish that, if players will play this game and they will feel sort of infused in the story and really understand and feel the emotions of these characters, and if music can help that, and if music can pull people along in that storytelling, then I think it was incredibly successful.